we had a front row seat to disaster response. It wasn't something that I ever thought that we would be in a position for at that level. But man, I'm glad we went through it because we were able to help our community directly. We showcased some members and their ability to help their community. And I think got some people thinking differently about business here. Certainly got people thinking differently about Appalachian State. They were tremendously helpful with space, time, effort, energy, volunteers, internet, showers, all that kind of stuff.
This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Today's guest is a dynamic community leader and voice of the High Country. David Jackson is the president and CEO of the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce. Since stepping into his role in 2016, David has transformed the chamber into a powerhouse of regional engagement and innovation. Under his leadership, the chamber launched its own foundation, expanded to over 700 active members, and was recently honored as the 2025 Carolina's Outstanding Chamber of the Year by CACCE. David's work has earned him multiple accolades, including being named Community Advocate of the Year by the North Carolina Rural Center and the North Carolina Main Street Champion. In 2025 alone, he was recognized with the Town of Boone 1872 Award and the Community Inspiration Award from the Watauga Community Foundation. Appalachian State alum and longtime resident of Boone, David has deep roots in the region. He's served on the boards ranging from Apple Cart, I hope I said that right, to the Town of Boone Central Resource Development, and even teaches as adjunct professor in the Walker College of Business. David, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Yeah, well, hello, friend. I feel like this might be the most niche podcast I think I've ever been on. So that's exciting. I know I'm talking to people that get it. As a listener myself, it's going to be fun. My interesting fact, I was, prior to chamber life, for 16 years was the radio play-by-play announcer at Appalachian State University for football, basketball, baseball. I was around for the App State Michigan upset back in 2007. Occasionally, you might still hear that play call get thrown out there, and I'm the one that's screaming the softest, trying to make sense of what's going on. My broadcast partner was saying something to the effect of yard sale in the big house during that moment. But I enjoyed long career as a sports broadcaster. I still do some of that work. I do ESPN Plus broadcasts for App State now, as well as some work with the Carolina Panthers on occasion. It's a hobby rather than a lifestyle. And I found that working in college athletics for as long as I did, there are so many parallels to that work and chamber work. It wasn't what I was expecting, but took me about 20 minutes to get into this job and think, this is the same gig. It's just new people and maybe a little bit less crazy hours.
That would have been a really cool episode for us to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, there you go. It's a fascinating comparison. It really is.
Yeah. I thought I recognized your voice. Yeah, you've got a voice perfect for being on a podcast. So this is fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about the Boone County Chamber, just to give us an idea of the size, staff, the type of work you guys are involved with, budget, that sort of thing to set the stage.
Yeah, so first off, the Boone Area Chamber is in Boone, North Carolina. We are one of 4 that we can count chambers that have some reference to Daniel Boone in the name. We get a lot of calls and occasionally some mail for the Boone, Iowa Chamber, and have developed quite a relationship with them over the years. But Boone, North Carolina is in the northwest corner of North Carolina, about an hour and 45 minutes northwest of Charlotte. So if you're looking at a map, and you see where North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee all converge, up there in the Northwest Mountains, that's where Boone is located. We've got a population here of right around 20,000 inside the town, about 60,000 inside the county. And as I mentioned, we're home to Appalachian State University. They've got about 19,000 students here in the area locally, but an enrollment of a little over 22,000 now, with a lot of online and graduate programs spread really throughout Western North Carolina. They've got a campus in Hickory, which is about an hour south of here, that has recently emerged as well. So this is a very tourism heavy area. It is one that in the wintertime, as we record today, we've got something frozen falling from the sky, and that coincides with really opening weekend for the ski industry here in North Carolina. Skiing brings in about $125 million a year to the state's economy, and all of that is really located within a 2-county area here. In the summertime, we run about 10 degrees to 15 degrees cooler than Raleigh and Charlotte. So we are a tourism mecca from that perspective. And if it gets up to about 84, 85 degrees in July, people are melting in the streets up here. So tourism heavy economy, about 3,500 feet in elevation for the most part in the county. This is a special place. A lot of folks that live here have the university as a magnet of some sort. It either brought them here, it brought them back here, or maybe was the reason why they wanted to stay around as a local, because they've been able to get educated and find life here. So it makes our mix of businesses very unique. Again, a lot of service industry, but then a lot of innovation tied to the university as well, and the community college system here in North Carolina. So no dull moment, like for many of you that are listening, but certainly a part of the state that is unique, and we try to play into that as much as we can.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with college and university towns where your population fluctuates depending on enrollment and the time of year and whatnot. But it's its own unique circumstance to try to manage.
Yeah, and football game days are a big part of the economic driver here. App State in the good years, they will miss a bowl for the second time in as many years, and that's kind of unheard of around here. But for a normal game day, they can push up past 35, almost 40,000 attendees. Kid Brewers Stadium is one of the highest ranked stadiums in the country for percent capacity. They usually go well over 100%. I think last year they were at 107% of their capacity. So, you pretty much triple the size of the town when they come in and bring all the ancillary fun to that. And those are the 6 dates that people block off and schedule life around, and businesses do the same. So those, when the schedule's released in March, everybody scribbles furiously, and then we try to plan everything else around that. But it's a very big part of the university's influence here.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm thinking we should have chosen a different topic, but what we did settle on was to talk about disaster relief, and specifically how you guys were able to utilize your foundation to help with disaster relief after Hurricane Helene. So we'll dive into the details of that as soon as I get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign. And our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
All right, David, we're back. As I mentioned before the break, we're talking about disaster relief and how you guys were able to utilize your foundation as a tool to help in that effort. Why don't you set the stage for us, give us the background and how the foundation came to be and then how you went to implement it.
Yeah. So first, I want to say thank you to a number of chamber colleagues that reached out to our community and communities throughout Western North Carolina during what was an incredibly difficult time for us in September and early October of 2024. As I mentioned at the top, this is a very tourism heavy economy throughout the western side of the state, basically from I-7, the mecca of the state's tourism attention for the fall. Because of the leaves and because of the scenic views that you get. You look out over a 45, 50-mile range view at fall color, you can't beat this location. To have Hurricane Helene's impact right at the front end of that part of the calendar was catastrophic for us economically. And that's not just here. Obviously, a lot of lenses were focused on the Asheville area. Asheville's about an hour and 15 minutes to the southwest of here. And our communities are incredibly interconnected. And one of the ribbons that ties us all together is the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is the most visited national park in the country, stretching from Southern Virginia all the way down past Asheville. That road was decimated by the storm. And in normal October, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of visitors that are driving up and down that road and venturing into the small and large communities off the parkway on any given day. So we saw what was our top month for economic performance get turned off before it ever got turned on and turned completely off. So we had a lot of colleagues reach out and help those that have been through disasters before. We talked to colleagues in Hawaii and Iowa, Florida, Louisiana, all over the country, really, that helped us understand what was next in the FEMA process, the SBA process. We learned very quickly never to schedule your natural disaster in the midst of a contentious presidential election. That was all kinds of bad for all of the reasons you would imagine. Yeah, and we are still going through some of that reorganization of FEMA dynamic and what that meant for trust in our community. This is an area of the state and really of the country that is deep rooted in Appalachia culture. So it takes a lot of time to trust people. And when you've got people wearing federal jackets and badges running into your community after it's been turned upside down, that's not exactly the warm, friendly, hospitality-based response that we normally have. And it's taken some time to get to that. So I said all that context to say that what we learned in our unique situation is just how much local partners and trusted partners matter. We, back at the beginning of 2022, we signed a contract with Watauga County to provide economic development administrative assistance for the Watauga County EDC. So we are essentially the backbone of economic development for our county. The previous economic development director had retired from the county. We hired him here at the chamber for his kind of post-government life, and he maintains that same role now, just working for us instead of them. So at that time, we decided that we needed to start a 501c3 foundation to do the economic development sidecar work. So if we're going to go buy land or support a project, we need a place to raise those funds. Very similar to every other chamber in America. It seems like we were one of the last to the party in that regard, but had a lot of help in setting that up. So when the storm hit, our director of communications and I were sitting at a coffee table inside Appalachian State Student Union. We had no power or internet access at the office, and Appalachian State happened to have both because of their robust system and a little bit of self-sustaining ability there. So we're sitting outside the coffee shop, and my director of communications looks at me and says, "Do you think our foundation might be helpful right now?" And we're less than 24 hours away from the impact of the storm. We're trying to figure out where everybody on the staff is, let alone what our response is going to be. And said, it's not really what it's designed for, but yeah, I mean, we know we're going to have to raise money for something. We don't know what that something is yet, but yeah, let's give it a shot and make it available. We just happened to have a Watauga County commissioner walking by who works at App State, and I said to him, I said, Charlie, I think we're going to use our foundation as a landing space for funds, and he said, yeah, man, that could get muddy. I don't know. Good luck with it. And that was that. So we put out on social media, because again, we had internet access, that if people wanted to donate to local causes to support the business community, here was a place to do it. And here was a mechanism for it. Got a QR code and got Stripe working. And all of a sudden, before we knew what happened, in about 7 days, we had $200,000, a little more than that, that had been raised in $5 and $10 increments from people all over the world. People that had a heartfelt connection to the mountains of North Carolina for whatever that reason happened to be. They may have learned to ski here, went to school here, whatever. They wanted to give back. So we, since then, in total, we're knocking on the door of about $2 million that we've raised since September of 2024 in just hurricane-related disaster funding. We've used, and we can talk here in a minute about the variety of ways we've deployed that. But I think that the lesson learned here is that for all of us, people have a connection to our communities that maybe we feel like we understand, but we don't necessarily understand it as deeply if we are in the community. What I mean by that is the people that would desire to live next door to you, they want to be back in the place they went to school or that place that's special to them. They have connections and again, that heartstring pull that we can't imagine living in that place every day. It's that yearning desire to be there and help. And that saved us, because it took weeks to get any kind of major substantive funding out of the federal government, from the state government. Those dollars were slow to come. Once they did come, none of them were there for small business support. I think that's something that we've heard echoed around the country. There are no small business grants that are coming from the government to help those businesses that, again, saw significant turnoff of their revenues at the busiest month of the year, right? So there was hurting that was going on there, and nobody else was coming to help. So that's kind of one of the lanes that we moved into, and we were just heartened, and it gave us some pep in our step after some incredibly long days, some that are still going on, as a matter of fact, that people care.
Right.
And that was really the adrenaline that kept us going there for a while.
Yeah. So questions are coming to my mind. I'm sure they are to listeners as well. So a lot of those listening have gone through the process of establishing a foundation, or maybe they're considering it, or maybe they came into their position and was already set up. But when you guys set up your foundation, as far as the documents and everything, the charter and whatnot, so how was it set up that allowed you to deploy the funds for disaster relief? Usually it's very specific what the funds are for, right?
Yeah, very, very, and that's a great question. So we set the foundation up to be very vague in economic development support. The reason for that was that we didn't exactly know at the time that we created it where those levers would ultimately be pulled. If that was going to be, say, in housing support, like everybody, we have affordable housing issues here, and we wanted flexibility to be able to maybe buy land or donate money to a specific project that we could fundraise. So we didn't want to go, and some foundations are so incredibly specific. We did want to give some flexibility to work within 5 core buckets. So like many communities, I would imagine, housing is one, childcare is another one, workforce development. We have a bucket for our chamber capital needs here to support our business. And then we've got another general fund that allows us to support community events, run our leadership program, things along those lines. So we tried to establish it like that first. The key that came around on the disaster side was that word disaster. And as we raised funds and put them in that general account for community support, we were able to then deploy those funds. Part of that went to childcare, and we can talk about that in a minute. But the disaster grant program that we've run 4 rounds of a disaster grant program for small businesses over a 3-county area here, not just Watauga, but Ashe and Avery counties as well that border us. And by using the word disaster, you get away from some of the IRS issues there. Those businesses that receive grant money still have to report that. It's income for them, but it's cash flow as much as anything. We were able to put about $1.4 million of the money that we raised into that specific program itself. And then had businesses apply to us over 4 rounds. Each round had a different flavor to it. And we were able to deploy those grants in the name of the disaster itself. As long as we were a disaster declared county, our accountant said that was the way to handle the language, and the flexibility of that community support mechanism was really what helped drive the vast majority of what we've done.
Yeah. So that leads to my next question. I was going to ask about how the money has been deployed, and
Mhm.
you touched on one aspect of it there. Is there other areas, other ways that those funds have been dispersed?
Yeah. So one of the early conversations that we had with our foundation board, we gathered them about 10 days after the storm. We had money coming in. We had about $250,000 at the time. So it was a good bit of money, more money than we'd ever seen, but also in the totality of, a couple $1 billion storm, not going to move the needle in any one direction very far. So we said to them, we got this money, we need to get it out. What do you want to do? Here are some options. We talked about business grants then, and to give you an idea, the storm hits in late September. This is probably the second full week of October. We had this conversation. So we felt like business grants was going to come. We were holding out hope that some conversations around the General Assembly in North Carolina, the governor's office, Roy Cooper at the time, now Josh Stein, that there were going to be some mechanisms far greater than ours that were going to come into play, which never did. But we would hold tight there. And one of our board members said, we ought to be about what we're about, and we're about childcare support. We believe very firmly and are one of the state's leaders in this thought that childcare is an economic development issue. It's our core economic development issue, access and affordability, and the ability to support the workforce that supports the workforce. So we said, we knew at that time we had 36 centers, licensed care centers here in Watauga County. All of them were dealing with enrollment issues related to the storm. School system was closed here for about 3.5, 4 weeks, just in Watauga County. It was longer in surrounding areas. And because of that, people weren't working. There was fluctuation in need for childcare. There was certainly a lot of cost issues across everything that made the expensive childcare bill at the end of the month almost insurmountable. So we said, let's take about $210,000 of this money and let's invest it in those childcare centers, and let's make sure that they can be open in November. But, we saw that investment as a twofold thing where, one, we could stabilize the industry. And North Carolina's got a litany of issues with its child care support mechanisms statewide. That's another whole episode we could get into. But we wanted to make sure those businesses could open again, at full force when they needed to, and that their workforce was supported. But we also thought if we could provide some tuition assistance here, we're going to free up cash for people that are going through the process with insurance, going through the process with FEMA, and it's going to take a while for them to get money, and they need to make repairs. We're talking bridges washed out, roadways washed out, a lot of those private and nestled into little nooks and crannies in the mountains. It's not easy to repair necessarily, and certainly costly. So any money that we could free up for immediate needs, we felt like that was going to be a benefit. So we made an allocation to our local Smart Start agency of $210,000 to support tuition for October for everybody that was in a licensed child care center. They were able to pool some additional money to work that grant off of another grant. And we ended up deploying just shy of $240,000 to that effort, which nearly covered every student that was in licensed child care here in the county. We had a few centers that opted out because they had other funding that backed that up. So they didn't want to take money away so we could spread it farther. And we were able to provide that tuition assistance for that first month. And that was a life changer for not only the centers, but the families. And that really got us started. Then because of that success, I think people saw our foundation as a trusted destination for funding. The vast majority of what we got in that 1.4 I was talking about earlier, locally driven funds, we've had 3 allocations from 2 different large grantors that totaled up about $750,000. So about half of that came from the private sector, and again, small gifts. Yeah, there was a house party at App State that donated a couple $100 to us from their proceeds. I mean, it really got crazy there. But I think part of that was also telling the story of how we were spending the money, not wanting to toot our horn by any stretch, especially at that time. But I think if you don't tell the story, people don't understand what your capacity is. And we wanted to let people know, like we said, if your dollars come here, we're going to keep them local and we're going to keep them going toward community function. And that child care allocation was the thing that kickstarted the whole process.
Right. So you had mentioned that the foundation was fairly new as the storm's coming, and you saw an opportunity to be able to utilize it in this way. Had you guys raised any funds for the foundation ahead of time? Is there, I guess, how have you proactively gone about? Obviously, after a storm happens, after there's a catastrophe, it's easier to broadcast that and get people to donate. But for those listening who want to be proactive, ahead of time, who maybe already have a foundation, trying to collect funds and be a magnet. So then when it is needed to be deployed, it's there and ready, whether economic development or disaster relief or whatever the need may be. What was your guys' situation like?
Yeah, that's another great question. Thinking back a little bit, first off, I wish we had this foundation longer. Knowing what we know now, there are so many uses for something like that. And every community's got their need and their specific set of needs. Prior to the storm, we raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 total in the history of the foundation for things outside of childcare. Now, in the childcare space, we had been involved, and part of the reason why this was the thing that we chose for about an 8-year period of time now, we've been involved in a deeper community conversation around that childcare industry support. And years ago, before the economic development machine here in Watauga County had a destination for funds, our Smart Start agency held what was called the Early Childhood Education and Development Fund. And that was an area for us to take public sector dollars and private sector dollars and merge them into an account where we could pay for various workforce supports within the industry. Once we got our foundation started, the county commissioners actually suggested that we take that fund out of the Smart Start agency and put it into the Economic Development Support Agency because it was just a little bit cleaner and would eliminate any impropriety or thought of that with mission drift of the Smart Start agency. So it was done to really kind of protect them in a way, but also give us the opportunity to then, because it's under economic development, allow other people to see that wouldn't maybe necessarily see that fund if it were embedded inside of a Smart Start agency. So with that, we did end up getting some extra traffic there, but you're talking about $60,000 a year, with some private donations here and there, so we were in the chump change category, really kind of limping along, so much so that we had a part-time staff member that we onboarded in August of 2024 and said, all right, part-time staff member, we're going to limp along here. We're going to bring you on for 10 hours a week. We're going to turn that into 20 hours a week by the time the year starts. And then hopefully by next summer, we've got you as a full-time member that's out there working, trying to grow this foundation. Well, the storm hits and he was full-time by the end of the year. And continues to be just a tremendous asset for us in all of the grant management and the amount of paperwork that we had to turn around at the end of 2024, all the 1099s we had to let fly because of the grants. That was a great problem to have, but that was a financial burden on us too, so we really had to think about, on the backside of all of this good, it's also crippling our staff that was worn slap out at the same time, so we've gotten smarter with that now. And I feel like if we're ever pressed into that emergency position again, we've got an understanding of what emergency dynamics when it's related to fundraising look like and how we need to be prepared as an organization. And that, unfortunately, I don't know that you can really prepare for until you do it.
Great perspective. So I always like asking the question, especially for those listening who are trying to take their chamber up to the next level. What kind of tip or action item would you share with them, whether it's related to this topic with disaster relief and foundations or something totally different? What would you suggest for them in trying to accomplish that goal of taking their chamber to the next level?
Yeah. When you sent me questions ahead of time, this is the one I stewed on the most. I think that it's kind of twofold. Certainly when I've been at this chamber for almost 10 years now, and, this is a small, tight-knit community here in the mountains of Northwest North Carolina, right? So relationships are everything. And it's proving that you can do what you say you're going to do that allows you to get in the next room and to be a part of the next project. And, coming to this role from a very different role in the same community, I had to earn that level of respect personally, that I wasn't just the radio broadcaster from App anymore. I had some understanding of what this job was about. And then we built a team that could meet the moment in a variety of different ways, all again centered hardcore on relationship equity. We've got a professional staff here, many of them that were App State grads that have those deep community ties. So when something like Helene happens, you've got faces that you've got people that you trust, and you've got a track record behind you that will allow you to be at the epicenter of things. That Saturday after the storm hit Friday, we were called to a meeting at the courthouse, sheriff, police chief, all the emergency response folks, and we raised our hand and we said, "Tell us how we can help. Put us to work." And our track record in previous smaller situations led that director to say, "All right, you guys are in charge of supply chain distribution," which that's a whole other episode to talk about why you might not necessarily want to get into that business. But we had a member with a warehouse, and that it was a pickleball court, actually, an indoor
Perfect.
pickleball facility that turned into the supply depot. But that was a relationship with that member that allowed us to perform in the moment for it in a relationship setting that the county needed a resource. And to be able to provide that means that you need those relationships to really be forged on the sunny days. Every opportunity that you've got to make an impact and again, sign up for something that you can know that you can accomplish and do it well for your community, that's going to make them lean on you. Now, the downside to that is when you've got that track record, they're going to lean on you. But I think we all want to be in that moment, right? Because we're all about community support. We're all about getting our community over whatever that hurdle is. So we had a front row seat to disaster response. It wasn't something that I ever thought that we would be in a position for at that level. But man, I'm glad we went through it because we were able to help our community directly. We showcased some members and their ability to help their community. And I think got some people thinking differently about business here. Certainly got people thinking differently about Appalachian State. They were tremendously helpful with space, time, effort, energy, volunteers, internet, showers, all that kind of stuff. The town-gown relationship has been rocky here in the past. It is as good as it's ever been. And we have been in a position to tell that story from the inside. And I think that's helped everybody. So just some thoughts. Relationships matter much more so than the bumper sticker that we all have on our cars.
Yeah, I love that idea of forging those relationships before, during the sunny days, so you can call on them when you need them. So
That's right.
that's awesome. As we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
That's another great question that I feel like it's things like this that are going to be as important as membership and the non-dues revenue cycles that we all get chased into, because I think members see that reaction. Excuse me. I think that a lot of times our work trying to sell our value is really about what we do. It's not about what we say we do. And when people see an organization like a chamber or an economic development organization leading to try to solve the problem rather than trying to sell themselves on being an answer to the problem, the membership takes care of itself. I don't necessarily see membership eroding necessarily. I think the motivations for membership change. I think people will want to invest at a time where ROI is certainly at a critical point for anybody that's in a membership related field. I think that the work you do is going to drive the investment that people see in you. If they see you as a solutions-based problem solver, that's going to take care of itself. But then what do you do with your organization to make sure that it is always geared toward community support and making the community better tomorrow than it was today? And for some communities, that is to be the party starter, the parade organizer, the fun, energetic beacon of light inside, difficult conversations sometimes. For others, it's about leading forward with economic development thoughts and all of those types of things. For us right now, that's going to be about rebuild. This is going to be a multi-year conversation here, thinking about how you take hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to come in infrastructure support and make sure that your community is better forward. So we're hosting those meetings. So we want to try to be a part of that, not drive it. We don't want to own it, but we want to facilitate. And then, we can storytell a little bit. So I think it all boils back down to being nimble, relationships, and understanding that people will trust what you do when they see you do it. and that will take care of the investment that we all need them to make in us. And we hope that they make positively and see the results based on what we can all do for our communities.
Yeah, I love that. Make the impact. Don't just talk about the impact that you are, talking about making.
That's right.
Actually put the rubber to the road and make something happen. So I love that. Well, David, this has been a great conversation. Hopefully it's one that kind of gets the wheels turning for those that are listening, thinking about what can they do to be better prepared for when disaster comes to their community, or hopefully it doesn't, but you want to be prepared for it. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and learn more about the structure of your foundation, how you guys have deployed things, or
Yeah.
anything else you've touched on. What would be the best
Yeah.
way for them to reach out and connect?
Well, yeah, and thank you as well. I've listened to so many of these. I heard one of our colleagues, Tanya Stevenson, on a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, and that was awesome. Tanya's great. She's 2 counties away from me. But yeah, boonechamber.com is our website. We've got a podcast as well called Mind Your Business. I encourage you to check that out, learn a little bit about our little pocket of North Carolina. But in all seriousness, because so many people paid it forward to us, if there is any community in any shape, in any part of this country that is going through something similar to what we experienced, please call us. If for no other reason than to talk to some people that understand and can give you that 10 minutes of levity where you can just let it all out. And you may not need anything. You just may need to talk to somebody that's been through it. So we can help there. We certainly have, some fresh perspective on what today's FEMA SBA mechanism looks like, and can share some thoughts there. But really, we just want to help because so many people helped us. Lean on us anytime. boonechamber.com. Come and find us.
That's perfect. We'll have it linked in our show notes as well to make it easy. David, this has been great. I hope you feel like you've been able to touch on the main points you wanted to cover in this conversation today. But thank you for joining us here on Chamber Chat Podcast, for sharing your experience and things that you've learned through this process. I think it's incredibly valuable. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
If you are a chamber professional, be sure to subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast on your favorite podcast app or now on YouTube, so you never miss a new episode. New episodes are released each week and delivered right to you. If you're finding value in the podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really helps others discover the show. And most importantly, share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues in the industry so we can continue to grow and strengthen the chamber community together.
This episode is brought to you by Riverside. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your chamber or your business, one of the biggest challenges is recording high-quality audio and video, especially when you and your guest aren't in the same room. Riverside is the platform I use to record every episode of the show. It gives you studio-quality audio and video right from your browser, automatically backs up your files, and even creates clips you can use on social media. It's designed to make podcasting simple and professional without the headaches. If you're ready to launch your podcast or upgrade your recordings, head over to chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside to get started today. Again, that's chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside, the same tool I trust to bring you these conversations every week.